Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sarah Martin with The Contoured Chemist. Today is going to be troubleshooting. We're going to be talking about Seint IIID Foundation and how to get the finish you want from your makeup depending on your skin type. So I hear all the time, this makeup makes me look oily or dry or cakey. How do you wear this in the summer? How does it not melt off your face in, humidity, things like that. So I'm gonna be talking about all the different variables from skincare, skin prep, brush choice, application, and of course, how you're setting your face, which is the most important. If you wanna check it out, please keep watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and thanks for being here. Okay friends, first things first, if you can hear construction, I'm sorry. There's like 4 houses being built very close to ours, and they're pouring concrete for foundations today, of course, and it's very loud. So I apologize. Let's get right on into this. I wanna talk numero uno, which is skin prep. So the things I hear the most, I would say, when it comes to 3D foundation is either they feel like they're too dewy, oily, greasy looking partially through the day, or maybe you have more dry patches and you feel like it looks cakey in certain areas. Or I've also heard the opposite, which is they're not getting the dewy look that they want. And so most of that depends on your skin type and how it's working with the makeup, and also how you're applying, how you're prepping, definitely how you're setting your face. And you can literally tweak to get exactly the look you want as long as you know a few tips and tricks and how you're gonna set up your face for the best success, right? So I wanna start with skin prep. So those that have tried the makeup before and aren't getting that dewy look, one of the things could be skincare. Because if you have very dry, dehydrated skin, you're not gonna see any of the glow from your skin from under that makeup, right? You're only gonna see the dewy finish of our makeup, and that's it. Our makeup does give a dewy finish, but it can look dull if your skin is almost like, I don't want to say sucking it in or absorbing it, because our makeup does not absorb in your skin. It will sit on top of your skin, okay? So know that. But your skin care will make a huge difference. So my makeup started looking better, the better my skin looked. Obviously, we all know our skin is our canvas, right? If you want your makeup to look like a 10, you can't have a skincare regimen at a 2. It's just not gonna be possible that you can't fake it all with makeup, unfortunately. There's a lot that makeup can do, but if you really want that glowy, dewy look and wanna be able to wear less makeup, start with skincare. And I learned that the hard way, going from no skincare regimen at all, and then wanting this makeup to look better and learning what I had to do for my skin. Okay, so I could go into lots about just skincare in general. I have a lot of other videos. I can link my playlist to my skincare videos, but I would say the 2 things I would say would get you the glowiest skin the quickest manner would be a vitamin C in the morning, mornings only, and then using some kind of AHA at night. So glycolic acid, lactic acid, if you're new to exfoliating acids, acids will get off that top layer of dead skin and really reveal that glow. I'm telling you, those 2 things, when I incorporated it in my routine, is what gave me the glow the fastest. And when I stop using them as much, I notice my skin, huge difference in the way it kind of just looks day to day. Now, if you have severely dehydrated, dry skin, really load up on ceramides and get your barrier intact. So there are a lot of great ceramide products. In fact, It's put in almost everything nowadays, but really making sure you are using a nice heavy duty moisturizer at night made the biggest difference for me when I woke up and my skin was still glowing. But those acids are also going to help remove some of that dead skin, get your skin cell turnover to increase as well. Once you have your skincare in check, obviously you can keep improving it over time, but I'm telling you, it takes very few things to just get it to make the biggest difference, and that's a good cleanser, a good heavy duty moisturizer at night. Add in an acid and a vitamin C, and you will notice a difference in a month, I promise you. Okay, so morning skincare, I feel like you can set yourself up for success really easily as long as you know a few tips and tricks. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the vitamin C. Cleanse vitamin C. If you want to add any other serums, I don't even moisturize in the morning. I have very normal skin at this point, so I don't moisturize. I use my sunscreen as my moisturizer. Now, if you have dry skin, definitely don't do that, or you will feel like when you're applying that makeup, if you have dry patches, it will cling to that. Again, an acid is going to help you. Exfoliating regularly was a game changer when I realized this makeup. I know a lot of people think, oh, these creams must feel like a mask. I hear that a lot. And I'm like, oh, in fact, it's very opposite of that, because if it feels like a mask, you most likely just have the wrong colors and applying way too much. When you actually have the right color combinations and are instructed on really how to apply this makeup properly, you will be amazed at how it just looks like your skin, and you won't be able to feel it on your face. So that being said, because it's not a heavy matte mask-like, what I would consider full coverage type foundation, those I feel like sometimes if you aren't full, can be kind of like a crutch to, well, I'm just gonna cover up all my skincare concerns with a heavy foundation that's gonna kind of cover those dry patches, whatnot. Then you notice that kind of foundation, what happens? Throughout the day, you notice you start getting this like flaky, dry situation going on, to where certain parts of your face start cracking and almost look like they're peeling, especially around blemishes that are prone to be drier anyway. That is typical of a liquid foundation because they evaporate. Right. Traditional liquid foundations are just pigments and mostly water. You put them on your face, the water will evaporate, they dry down, and they set. Okay, so it just leaves those powdered pigments on your face. But when your face moves through the day, that's gonna lead to that cracking, drying. Those are actually very drying for your skin. So going over to a cream-based foundation, at least ours in particular, because it's made of mostly petrolatum, which is literally like Vaseline, okay? Obviously it doesn't feel like Vaseline on your face, but it's an occlusive. So occlusives are really big molecules, okay? So they can't actually absorb into your skin. So when you hear pore clogging, these occlusives can't do that because they're just too large. So they'll sit on top of the skin, and all that moisture that your skin normally loses during the day, which is called transepidermal water loss, it's held in. So what you see is your skin actually improves in hydration levels without even any skincare added. Just wearing this makeup every day is going to improve your skin's hydration. Hydration is what makes our skin look plump, glowing, and actually will reduce the look of fine lines. That is purely hydration of your skin. That's also why these creams are sometimes referred to as a second skin, because they're almost like sitting on top of your skin, like a second skin, and they look like skin when applied properly and not too heavy. But because of that, they also aren't going to just fill in everything on your face like some other products can, and they're not going to be forgiving in all areas if you're not taking a little bit of care of your skin. And that's when exfoliation really plays a huge part. I didn't realize how badly my skin needed exfoliation until I started wearing these creams. and realizing the more I exfoliated, the better they blended, the better they looked, the less product I needed because it looked better with less. So one of the things I always say is like these creams, you need very little. I think we've just been accustomed to using liquids and keep applying more until things are covered, if you will. But this makeup is not like that. The more you apply, then you can get into cakey territory. And that is the last thing you want when you want that really glowy, luminous look that makes us look younger, right? So that was the reason why, one of the many reasons why I switched to this foundation is because my foundation was aging me by a lot. So skin prep is very important if you want the best possible finish. Now, you could not do anything and I feel like this makeup still looks 10 times better than what I was using previously. But the longer I've been an artist, it's been 6 years now, and going back and forth with my clients and troubleshooting all of these type of things I'm going to be talking about today is what will take your makeup to that next level when you know how to tweak it exactly for what you're wanting, right? Because everyone's different, everyone's skin is very different, and everyone has very different preferences about what they want their makeup to look like. And so these are things I've learned of how I got the best results for me, but I'm gonna kind of explain, not everybody wants it to look like skin and to be super glowy. That's what I want. Some people like a matte look. I'm gonna show you how you can get the best of both worlds, and your preferences might change the more you wear the makeup. I know mine did. I went from trying to cover up my skincare concerns to really letting my skin show through, and I was so much happier with the way it looks. Okay, first things first, when it comes to skincare prep, no matter what you're using on your skin in the mornings, you gotta check it for one specific ingredient that doesn't play nicely with our creams. And it floors me how many people don't know this. So please listen. You gotta check for silicones. Now this is a product I'm gonna show you guys later, but this is a silicone, okay? I just wanna show you guys what silicones are known for doing. If you're using anything under your makeup that is marketed, okay, so it says on the package, pore blurring, pore filling, anything like that, silicones are an ingredient in a lot of skincare, anything from serums. They are in some serums. The more and more I look at ingredients, the more I realize they're getting put in everything. Serums, moisturizers, sunscreens in particular. This product, I'll show you guys later, is 100% silicone. And so do you see how like matte it is? There's like no sheen to it whatsoever. The feeling, it is actually put in products mostly to give a smoother feeling to the skin, because it feels nice to be able to, like, I don't know, it gives that soft kind of velvety finish. So this is a product meant for pores. I'll show you how you can actually use it with our creams, but I want to show you guys this. Do you see how all of a sudden that part of my forehead has no pores visible, okay? I look funny. That is all it's doing, guys. That's a silicone, 100% silicone. All it's doing is it's taking away all reflection on my skin. Do you see that? So whereas you can still see the glow my skin naturally has here, you see no glow, okay? And all pores are is texture. It's natural. It makes your skin look real, to be honest. And when you take that away, you're just taking away that reflection. So a lot of times when people are like, I don't want my pores to show, that means you have to make whatever that area of your face is look matte. That's it. Look matte. Take away all glow, okay? So when it comes to this makeup, I feel very strongly you have to understand a few key things. And one of them being, if you don't want your pores to show, you're gonna have to mattify it, which means you're gonna have to use a powder product like this. But one thing you cannot do is use a pore blurring, which I don't have any in front of me because I don't recommend them. You can't use anything like that under the makeup. This is marketed as something you can use under the makeup, not our makeup. What happens if I was to apply my highlight right here is it would slide off my face, and almost to the point where, like, if you've ever tried anything with silicone under 3D foundation, usually what happens is they come to me and they're like, within a couple of hours, it looks like I'm not wearing anything. And that's what it does. It can't stick. It will just basically fade away. And usually if someone says, oh, my contour is fading, my blush is fading, everything's fading, you gotta check your skin ingredients, skincare ingredients. I will put in a list, let's see if I can get this off. I'll put in a list to show you guys what to look for. And unfortunately, it's in a lot of things, okay? So I just wanna make it very apparent. If you're having any longevity issues and I've matched you, without a doubt, you've got something. And it stinks because even some of my favorite serums I've been using lately, I've been looking and I'm like, there's silicones in it. Like, they put silicones in everything. So now, I'm gonna say a caveat here because I get this question a lot too. There are a few silicones I've noticed over the years that don't have a huge effect. But look out for anything that ends in methicone or dimethicone. Those are the worst. I think this product is 6 different silicones. It just definitely doesn't. But my very favorite sunscreen has 1 silicone in it, but it doesn't affect my longevity at all. I believe this one also has one. So this is the Glow Screen from Supergoop. Now, this is the only one I wear. I believe there might be one other one that doesn't, but this is the one I wear on a daily basis. Their Unseen is silicone based, doesn't work. There's a lot of they have a lot of different sunscreens. I can't tell you how many times people are like, but you said Supergoop. But there are, you guys, they have like 10 to 12 different sunscreens. Every sunscreen formulation is different within a brand. You can't just say, oh, Supergoop is good. No, Glow Screen is the only one I wear, okay? Beauty of Joseon is amazing. It's an amazing Korean sunscreen. It's a little harder to get over here, but it does also have one, okay? Now it's not a methicone, so I notice no issues. I've had a few clients over the years that can't wear anything with any silicone. So know that know that everyone's skin is different. So it just kind of depends. I've been testing this one. It's very good and has absolutely no silicones. This is the Crave Beauty Beat the Sun. So if you've tried one of those other ones and are having any issues, try this one. If you like only mineral sunscreens and you're sensitive to chemical sunscreens, these two I've been testing are good. They're coming out with more and more. I believe this one, Coco Kind, even has a hybrid. So a lot of sunscreens on the market are both chemical and physical sunscreens. This one is physical, so it's just zinc oxide. But they have another one called, I believe they call it a sun serum that is both, but both of them are silicone free. And the Nucosis one is also mineral, 100% mineral, and it is silicone free. So let me back up a second. If you have dry skin and you actually need a moisturizer in the morning, if you do have dry skin or dry patches, you need a moisturizer. Sunscreen won't do it for you. Here are the 2 I'd recommend. And you always apply this before your sunscreen. Know that your sunscreen, your SPF, is always last in your skincare regimen. Otherwise, you can disturb the film it creates if you apply a moisturizer over it, okay? Best protection, always last. I believe this company has changed their packaging on this one, but it is literally Good Molecules Silicone-Free Priming Moisturizer. This is my go-to for anyone who has dry skin that needs a moisturizer under Seint IIID. This one is really good. I use this if I have any dry patches in the winter. I will just put it right where I might have a dry patch to give me a smoother application. This one is a new favorite and it's so good. Vichy, this is the Mineral 89. It's pretty much a moisturizer, much like their cult favorite hyaluronic acid, but this one has no silicones and it is extremely moisturizing. I would say this one's probably a little bit more moisturizing than the Good Molecules one, but they're both great, really great for winter time if you get drier in the winter, because our skin always is changing, right? So for my dry skin girlies, I would say, I will be honest, I feel like any of these are extremely hydrating. They all are. They all give that. Okay, so I just put all three on my hand. Crave, Beauty of Joseon, and then the Glow Screen. They all, in my opinion, are very hydrating and more of that just kind of natural glowy finish. They're not gonna give you a matte look. I feel like these mineral ones will dry down a little bit more matte. They're not matte by any means, but they are not quite as glowy as that one, those three, I guess. And then my favorite for if you do not want a dewy look or you are oily, I don't necessarily recommend, for sure, I never recommend Glow Screen. This one naturally is gonna it has a little bit of light reflecting particles. You see that right there? And so even though these are still very hydrating and glowy, this one almost fakes it. So if you are one that's like, I really want that glow to my skin, but I don't quite have it with skincare yet, this one will fake it. Glow Screen comes in multiple colors now. The original Sunrise will look good on anyone. If you're a little bit darker like me, I do use Golden Hour as well. And I sometimes mix them depending on my self-tan. So since they're the exact same formulation, you can mix them. Those are the only times I would mix the sunscreen. Now let's go to a oily face, okay? So if you're oily, usually these are the ones that are like, don't give me anything that's gonna make me extra glowy. I need like more mattifying and I need it to absorb oil through the day. So again, my favorite sunscreen. I don't use this one because it is way too matte for me and it makes me look dry almost. But when you see Dry Touch sunscreen, this one is by far my favorite. It's an Anthelios by La Roche-Posay, but this one, now granted, listen, they have a lot of different sunscreens. This one is silicone free. Most of the others I have are not, okay? So this is the one I recommend for my oily girls because it will give you protection, but it is going to, you see how matte that is? It's that Dry Touch. So it almost feels like there's silicones in it, but it's not, it's silica. So there's a huge difference between a silicone and a silica. Silica is actually an absorbent chemical that absorbs sweat, oil, all those things, okay? And that is usually gonna always give that matte finish, whereas these, very glowy, okay? I will link obviously the specific ones down in the drop box below the video. Okay, couple more things for my oily girls. So in my opinion, if you have an SPF for your skin type, with this makeup, you do not need a primer, and I will take that to my grave. After all of these years, I have never seen where it was necessary to use a primer with 3D foundation. It's just designed that you don't need one. It's not like a traditional foundation. As long as you have prepped your skin with a SPF that is made for your skin type, you shouldn't have to then put an additional layer to get it to balance out to be whatever kind of finish you want. Because you're already gonna have either that glowy, hydrated, or that nice matte finish, right? But if you haven't found the perfect SPF for your skin type yet, or you're still kind of experimenting, with application. You might feel like you need one if you've been trying it and you just are. I mainly recommend this for my very oily girls. And when somebody tells me they have oily skin, I know there are so many different levels of oily. Some people think they're oily if they're like, look like this. I'm not oily at all. But some people do get extremely oily. Okay, so this is my favorite for those very oily girls. We've already kind of troubleshooted. You're already using some of the setting techniques we're going to talk about later, but you need more power that's going to actually be right where you're oily and absorb it through the day. That's when I'd recommend a matte primer. Okay, so Honest Beauty, again, they've changed their packaging as well. I'll put in a picture of what it looks like now. Honest Beauty, this one's silicone free. It is hard to find a matte primer that's silicone free, but this one does wonders. So it's called Everything Primer Matte. This one, I'd say only apply it where needed, only if you're oily. If you're not oily, please don't use this. And it will absorb that oil as you produce it during the day. This one is very similar to my oily girls, but mostly just sometimes applies to people in summertime. I get all the time where people are like, but it's so humid where I live. Trust me, I live in one of the most humid states, most humid area, 90%, 100% humidity half the time. I started testing this makeup when I was in the middle of summer, the first time I ever purchased, and I wish I would have known these things then, because know that there is an adjustment phase. If your artist has not told you that, purely it is based on your skin type and your skin adjusting to that transepidermal water loss that I talked about earlier. So since our creams don't let that water out and are gonna hydrate, you gotta understand that your skin is used to losing all that water during the day, and all this extra moisture is maybe gonna like make you feel a little too glowy, a little too oily for a little bit. It just is science, right? So as your skin is adjusting, I usually tell my clients it can be anywhere from 2 to 4 to 6 weeks. The oilier your skin is, the longer it's gonna take, because oily skin a lot of times is needing extra moisture. It's usually actually caused by dehydration. And so it's gonna love it. Trust me, your skin will improve greatly if you can just stick with it. But it also kind of depends on how often you're wearing the makeup. If you work from home and you only wear it once on the weekends, it's gonna take longer for your skin to adjust. So some of these things you might need just during your adjustment period. And then as soon as your skin is kind of adjusted, you're not gonna need it anymore. So when I started, I only used some of these setting techniques, and it got me through the adjustment phase. And now I don't have to do that anymore. My skin, it loves the creams and loves that extra moisture, okay? But in the summer, it can be a little bit harder. Humidity plays a part, right? And some people just tell me, well, what if I sweat a lot? And that's a valid point, especially if you're outside a lot of times. So I did find this, and it works wonders. If you are out in a lot of humidity where you're gonna sweat, you go to a lot of baseball games like I do, and you need a little bit of extra power to absorb that sweat before it ruins your makeup. So now, again, this company also has a primer. The primer is a no-go. The primer has silicones, but this one does not. This is just the Carpe, I think it's Carpe Sweat Absorbing Face Lotion. And again, one of the main ingredients, and I lied. This one actually does have that one same silicone that this one has, but it does not affect longevity. I have a lot of clients that use this. Just look out for those methicones. Those are the worst. But what this does is it does have that silica, okay? And that silica, which is also in this sunscreen, is what's gonna absorb that sweat and it's gonna kind of mattify as well. So the sweat absorbing face lotion, I'll link that down below as well. Those are my recommendations. If you've tried everything and you're still struggling, I always recommend application is first and then setting, okay? And if your setting techniques are not doing it, then you wanna go to how you're prepping your skin. And obviously any SPF needs to be for your skin type, or that's just going to affect your entire canvas, right? But setting sometimes can be all it takes to kind of get you through that. And these are like the next step. So I always say, start with the setting, then you can go for what are you putting under your makeup. Let's maybe try a primer or a different SPF, some of those techniques. So I hope that makes sense. So we're gonna do our skincare. If you got dry patches, I want you to put a little bit of that silicone-free moisturizer on right before you go in with your makeup. If you have normal skin or oily skin and you're just using an SPF for your skin type, I want you to apply that SPF and let it fully absorb, which means dry down. You wanna give it a good 10 to 15 minutes so you don't disturb that SPF film. Some people with those very dry patches will have to apply their SPF and then go in with just a touch of that moisturizer only where they're dry. And I keep touching my forehead because the only place I ever get a dry patch seems to be right above my eyebrows in winter time. I think because I accidentally miss that area maybe sometimes when I moisturize, I'm not sure. Or maybe I don't exfoliate my eyebrows very well. So just kind of touch that. Normally we always say 15, even 20 minutes, let your products completely absorb, dry down, create that film. But if your SPF then dries that out again, I'd say grab a little bit of moisturizer, put it on there, and then go directly into your makeup. If you go directly in without that fully absorbing, it's gonna give you a smoother application. If you are needing the mattifying primer, you would do that after your SPF has fully dried down. So I get that question a lot as well. So still 10 to 15 minutes after your SPF, then you go to sit down in your makeup. You can put this on right before you start applying your makeup. Get into the nitty-gritty of application. So I normally always recommend my clients starting out to get the blush, bronzer brush, and the detail brush. Gives them a lot more versatility. They can apply it numerous ways. And I tend to get the least amount of issues when it comes to troubleshooting and applying too much if people are using these two. Now, if you are applying the makeup and you feel like it is heavy, it looks like a mask, you feel like in the summer it feels like it's melting off, without a doubt in my mind, you're applying too much. And that can happen for numerous reasons. One can be you're using a brush that applies a lot of product. I see that a lot. Or maybe you are using a method where you're swiping in or swiping on the face so you have less control. Know that the more product is on your face, the more prone it is to feel heavy or like it's melting off, and the more oily it can look. When you have the right colors and the right amounts, you're not gonna feel like it could possibly melt off because you're not gonna be able to feel it on your face. It's gonna be very minimal. And so I see a lot, either you're applying way too much because the color isn't right, or your brush choice, or maybe even just your application method, and you can switch that up easily and kind of tweak it so it doesn't ever feel heavy or oily, okay? Now, if you have normally oily skin and you have already troubleshooted by using the setting technique and prepping with a mattifying primer and using a brush that doesn't pick up too much product, and you're still feeling like that, you most likely have the wrong color, or your colors aren't being applied maybe as precise as necessary. So let's talk a little bit about brush choice. If it was me and I was like, okay, I wanna minimize the fact that I'm gonna feel like too oily or too heavy, I'm always going to say, let's grab the blend brush. This brush is gonna pick up far less product. The less product that's on your face, the less you're gonna feel oily. I don't really feel like I get many people with dry skin feeling like it looks dry. The only time it really can look dry, I feel like kind of goes in hand with looking cakey. Again, cakiness can be caused from too much product. And again, it can be caused by too light of a color. Color and amount of product is everything with this makeup. And avoiding those issues are really easy as long as you have a very accurate color match and have been shown how to apply very little product. I'm telling you, if you can apply your full face with this brush, it is very rare that you will ever apply too much because this applies very little. So I'm gonna show you how I would use this brush for all my highlight. Now, I don't contour with this brush. I find it very difficult for anyone to contour with this brush because this is too flimsy to blend, and this is just so small to try to blend. It would take forever. And it's not the fastest to use this brush only, but it will eliminate that as a possible issue if you think that that could be why you're feeling oily. If this doesn't, then it's the color, 100%. If you've done setting, skin prep, and using this brush, it's the color. I'm gonna show you how I color correct using this dense end, because when I just barely tap in and can really buff in with this brush, I know, like, you can't even see. Using a dense brush to blend it out means it will never be too heavy. If I was to swipe in and swipe on my face, I can't blend that out and disperse it around my entire face accurately. So I'm gonna go ahead and color correct, and then I'll show you how I do my main shade. Okay, so there's half of my face corrected and the other half not corrected. Using very little product, you can barely see it or feel it. That's our goal. I'm gonna do it the same thing to the other side. So I'm pretty much hitting all of my darkest points. No matter what that might be, this color will correct it all. So under eyes, hyperpigmentation, my rosacea, lots of dark spots. Okay. Now I'm going to use the big fluffy end, which picks up very little, and I'm just gonna kind of tap in and then tap on the face. And this is just gonna keep me matching, build up my coverage in a very light hand, and kind of tone down a little bit of that warmth since my corrector is a touch too warm for me. Okay, and applying very little product does not mean that you can't get adequate coverage where you really want it. Just make sure you're pressing on where you need more coverage. This brush, again, very light hand, but this end is going to be more dense. So go back into your main shade or even your corrector if you need more coverage anywhere, and then press on only those areas where you want more or need more. This will give you coverage and control without you having to apply a heavy layer to your entire face. Go ahead and contour and finish up my face real quick. Again, just using the least amount I possibly need. Okay, so using the right brushes, applying in a certain way by just kind of barely applying any and building up your color is gonna result in not only you having to apply less, but also blend less. When you're swiping with your finger and applying everywhere, it just means you're gonna have to blend out an excess. Whereas just tapping on and then pulling to barely blend, less blending, less product. It enables you to get less of that heavy feeling and more of that skin-like finish, but with the same amount of coverage. So now we've got to the point where perfector. This is my point number 3. So we got skin prep, brush and application, perfector. If you are feeling heavy or oily and you have not used the perfector before, just this might solve your problem all around. The number of people that don't use this astounds me. But then again, doesn't surprise me because for the first, I think probably couple years I was an artist, I did not realize the power the perfector has because I wasn't using it right. I was just wetting it under the water, squeezing it out and just kind of whatever. But when I figured out how to really prep this properly and use it properly, and never without fail do I not use this, it is a game changer. So it is the only way it enables me to not look heavy like this right here is still too makeup-y for me. It enables me to get the look I want without having to use a lot of these setting products I'm gonna be talking about, okay? So I ran this under water, I squeezed it. I probably squeeze it a good 5 times, fully letting it expand every time. And then I squeeze out as much as I can. And then I squeeze it about 3 times more as I'm shaking out every last drop of water. And that to me is the most important because you don't realize how much water these things can actually hold on to, right? It's a giant sponge. So of course it's going to hold on to water. Our perfector is second to none. Like you can't know the difference until you try. This one just feels differently. It is not designed to apply a foundation. It's designed with our creams to remove excess, and that is its sole purpose. Okay, so once I get out all the water, I put it in a flour sack towel and I dry it about 3 more times, moving it to a different place on the towel every time. And then I let it set out as I start my face so that top layer dries down even more so that when I touch my face, did you see it pull off any coverage? No. So what happens is it's not gonna pull off coverage. And I don't even use this much as a blending tool because I blend everything out with my brushes. It will kind of blur some edges, so you can use it to do that, but I'm mainly using it just to pick up excess. So if you're feeling sticky or tacky, you're feeling like it's heavy and you're not using this, just try it, I promise. It's a game changer. So this is the only way I can keep my under eyes from not creasing, and I'm focusing it and I am rotating it to a cold area. My smile lines, I will get creasing if I don't. And all of the places that you can get creasing is always just, it's gonna be the lowest areas of your face. The parts of your face that move the most. So eyes and around the mouth are notorious, right? All of those things are usually due also to excess product, applying too much. Can you perfectly apply every single time in order to not use the perfector? In my opinion, probably not. I've been applying this makeup for 6 years, trying every application method known to man, and I still need this. And when I try to not have to use it and apply so very little, I still will crease, guys. Like I just have I got a lot of texture, and obviously these creams don't set, so they're going to move to the lowest part of your face. It doesn't matter. No one my age has an entire face with no lower points, right? Wouldn't that be nice? Not without surgical intervention. Okay, so I'm still just tapping it with some pressure across my entire face. This is going to way reduce the look of being oily, in my opinion, because that is usually excess product. Now, I'm not gonna say you aren't gonna ever look oily if you don't have excess product. You can if you have oily skin. That's what some of those other things are gonna help. But application is always key to avoid any of these issues. Okay, so if you use the perfector and it's not pulling off excess, it's too dry. Make sure you run it under water until it fully doubles in size. Sometimes if you just kind of do this one time, it's not gonna fully absorb all that water. If it's pulling off actual coverage, it's too wet. So you gotta make sure you get out every last drop of water, get an absorbent towel. I'm telling you, even a paper towel does not work as well as a flour sack towel. Make sure you kind of let it dry down, even a touch. I can do this even if I want to do 5-minute makeup quick in the morning. It's all in how much water you get out of this to prep it as fast as possible, okay? We finally made it to the final step, and in my opinion, the most important step when it comes to what your final finish is gonna look like. This is always where I recommend starting. So we talked about the adjustment phase. So know that how you're setting your face when you start wearing this makeup might not be exactly how you're going to 5 years down the road, like me, okay? Obviously your skin will change if you're taking care of it as well. And again, your skin will adjust to that reduction of TEWL, transepidermal water loss, okay? So first things first, you gotta know what kind of finish you want. If you want the glow, like I like, you want to either use very minimal powder, only where necessary. In my case, that's usually only where I'm prone to creasing. So for me, I love our Vanilla Dust. Okay, so this one fits in our compact. It is a extremely finely milled powder, okay? But from my years of experimenting with this makeup, I realized every powder is not equal. And what also makes a huge difference is how you're putting on the powder and how much you're applying, okay? So let me show you a few of my favorite powders. So this is Vanilla Dust. I always keep it in my compact. This, in my opinion, is good if you like a dewy look. You just wanna reduce creasing of normal to mature skin, okay? I'd say the more dry you are, the more you wanna look for, if you're gonna use a powder, the more you wanna look for a very finely milled powder. The heavier your powder is, the more it will age you, which is why I say this is great for mature skin. And again, it depends on how much you're applying, how you're applying it. This is not my pick if you have oily skin. If you have oily skin, I would say I would only recommend this for touching up throughout the day, like that mid-afternoon, not as your initial makeup application. Another favorite besides Vanilla Dust that is also kind of the same consistency, if you will, finely milled, is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish. This is considered a micro powder, okay? Micro powder tells you it is very finely milled. This is a very great powder, but it is a very expensive powder. So it also doesn't fit in our compact, but I would say it is finely milled, much like our vanilla dust. And so if you do like that kind of thing and you just want to have a compact to throw in your bag, this is a great one. I would say my number one favorite loose setting power powder would be the Hourglass Veil in Translucent. This is one that I can use under my eyes without it aging me, as long as I am careful with the amount. Laura Mercier is known for its loose powders. This one though, it ages me a little bit more so, I'd say, than the Hourglass Veil. So it's a little bit heavier, it's a little bit better for more oily skin. Just remember, the more finely milled it is, the better it is for not enhancing fine lines, wrinkles, better for mature skin. The heavier the powder is, the better it is for oily skin, because it's gonna give more oil absorption, okay? It's got more of that oil absorption power, if you will. So for me, I'm gonna go ahead and show you how I use vanilla dust. I don't like using the Perfector because if you swipe in, I'll just show you, it gives a lot of product. Usually if I am without my brush and I need to use the Perfector, I will then swipe off the back of my hand and then use this much under my eyes. Again, if you use too much, it's still gonna emphasize texture. So setting your face should be for two reasons: either to minimize oil or creasing, or to mattify, okay? So if you want a matte look, you're gonna want more powder in more areas of your face. You're not just gonna do under the eyes, because our creams will give a dewy look, right? I want a dewy look, so I'm going to just powder under my eyes and where I'm prone to creasing, okay? So this is why, to me, it is very important that I'm going with a finely milled powder, and I'm using very little. So I like our powder brush because I can touch it and get a very precise amount. And so that way, all I have to do is tap it to disperse it. And look at that, it didn't age me at all. If anything, it kind of blurs slightly. And I didn't get too much. I have enough that the under eye set. I know I'm not gonna get any creasing during the day. But if I was to swipe into this, it would age me. I have tested it many times. Okay, so just tap it on, only where you need it. Now, since I use this already, I go ahead and go in with the same thing between my brows, which tend to be just a little bit shinier than the rest of my face for some reason. And then I just go down my smile lines, touch on my chin. So I am one that tends to like dewy and matte. Now this powder, you can tell, it doesn't take away all sheen. It leaves with a little bit of glow. That's what I want. I don't want this area to be super shiny. Most people don't like their T-zones to be super oily looking, right? But I want my cheeks to be left with the most glow possible. So I'm not gonna powder this area. Anywhere you powder, you will take away some of that sheen. So usually, if you want a matte finish, we say go in to where you only have highlight, okay? So if you put a even translucent powder over your contour areas, what is that gonna do? It's gonna dull this down. It can actually make it look a little bit ashy or gray, even if it's translucent. So you could go in with a powder bronzer if you need to set those areas. I say just skip the contour areas unless you have longevity issues there, which, talk to me, we can address that, because usually that's a color issue or you have silicones under your makeup. So usually you don't need to set that area. It doesn't I don't think give so much glow, but you can easily powder those areas. If you want fully matte, I'd say use a powder bronzer on your contour and then use a loose powder, which will give you more of a matte finish for longer. And I want you to press it on, okay? So here is, I'm gonna grab some Hourglass cap. Again, you can use this brush, but it would take a lot longer. I usually say grab a powder puff or a triangle and pick up some powder. And then take that and, oh, I got sunscreen all over my hand, and kind of work it into the puff and then press. Anywhere you don't have contour. So you go under the eyes in this triangle, along the jawline here, nose, lower part of the forehead. Okay, then you can use your powder bronzer to make those areas matte if it still bothers you. Usually I feel like if you put powder all of those places, you're gonna have a pretty matte look. Now, this will be much more of a longer lasting matte finish. A powder will always be more than a finely milled powder. Again, there's different levels and some are finer than others. I'd say if you don't know where to start with Laura Mercier. It's a cult favorite for a reason. It works for a lot of people. If you're just wanting a brightness under the eye, that's when I say you can go in with something like one of the Givenchy powders that have a mix of pigments. These are designed to give a brightening effect. And so I find these are best for just this area to set, not necessarily the full face. Now, setting sprays work as well. They just work very differently. One thing I want to mention, because I see so many people recommending using a setting spray to prime their face. Again, you guys know my opinion on primers, not necessary. And this has dimethicone, the worst silicone with our makeup. It will not help your makeup stay better. If you are needing something like this to, they say, prep the skin, then you're not using something adequate to prep your skin under it. Just find the right SPF for you. I would say search for an SPF that really you love and will apply every day, and it eliminates so many other issues, and you need much less products. Like, you don't need a primer for longevity if you have the right shades with this makeup, guaranteed. So our setting spray, we only have one. It is going to give a more dewy look. So say you're like me and you like a dewy look and you just need to set under your eyes, but you're like, I want more glow to my skin. You're gonna use our setting spray. This setting spray, in my opinion, after working with a lot of people, is not the best for oily skin. I'm gonna tell you to go find Urban Decay's De-Slick or one of their matte lines. If you like a matte look, that's one of the only, not the only, but most setting sprays are going to give a slightly dewy finish or take away that powdery feel. So that's why a lot of makeup artists use it. It's because they have a very powdered look to their face after a traditional foundation, liquid foundation, and it sets, and then they put a powder over that. In order to get any luminosity back to their skin, they have to use a setting spray to add that. Our creams don't work that way. It's gonna give a dewy look, okay? So if you don't want a dewy finish, don't use this setting spray. You can, if you apply this first and then you go in with a powder everywhere. That is my recommendation if you want a matte look and you have our setting spray and you have normal or I'd say mature skin. This is more hydrating formula than mattifying formula because it's a dewier look. So if you have our setting spray and you have that kind of skin and you want a matte look, spray first, powder last. You'll be good to go. If you are like me and you want, say you want a little bit of both, you can also do the same thing. Finish your makeup, spray your face, and then just use finely milled powder only where you need to avoid creasing or where you want matte. So say your T-zone, okay? And that way you'll be glowy and matte and you'll be set. If you spray this last, you're gonna take away a lot of that powder finish that you put in your T-zone. So if I was to apply this, say I want the dewiest look possible and I already powdered, then I can spray very last. It's gonna make everything dewy again. Does that make sense? For my dry skinned girls, just because you have dry skin doesn't mean you can't use a powder. You can, you just don't necessarily need it everywhere. You're probably gonna wanna go with a setting powder only where you wanna avoid creasing, and then that setting spray last. Now, a lot of people believe you can use only a setting spray and you don't need a powder. I personally feel like it doesn't work as well unless you are really saturating your face. And when I say saturating, I mean like you spray so much that you're practically dripping and then you just don't touch your face and let it dry. The way setting sprays work is that they create a film across the surface of the skin. It's not going to do that unless you have literally saturated every part of your skin. So I hear a lot of complaints of people are like, well, the setting spray sprays out in these big drops. It was designed that way so you didn't have to spray 20 times with a fine mist, but that also means that you still have to spray a good 5 to 7 times, but it's gonna be more forceful. So I typically am not a big fan of just always spraying my face when I know that I can just put a little powder under my eyes and I'm good to go. My longevity doesn't change because I know I have the right colors and I'm not constantly touching my face. If you're a face toucher, I would recommend a setting spray because on those areas you don't powder, it's going to create that film and give you better longevity on those areas. So it just kind of depends on the look you're going for, and you gotta know yourself. For my oily skin girls, I recommend using a setting spray designed for oil control. This one is not. De-slick or even a matte one if you want a matte look. Now there's oily girls out there that don't wanna be fully matte, and you won't be because your oil will add that glow probably within a couple of hours depending on how oily you are. Again, it can fluctuate and depends on if you're in the heat or whatever as well. But I would say use like something like De-Slick setting spray and then using a loose powder last where you want, okay? If you want a fully matte look everywhere, if you just want it to control your oil, only where you're the most oily. Usually that's the T-zone. Okay, so what about touching up during the day? What if you have a lot of fine lines around your eyes and you're like, Sarah, I can't wear any powders. They really affect me. I've shown tricks before where I use a setting spray and I pretty much just put it on my fingers. I rub it together and then I tap it under my eyes, and I do this before I powder. So I'm going to just tap it under my eyes, and I'm not creating a film everywhere, but guess what? I am getting a film under my eyes, and I've got an equal distribution, okay? So that right there is going to create that film under my eyes. So as my eyes move and crinkle during the day, I'm not going to get creasing on that area. So you can concentrate a setting spray only where you need it. You could do it in your smile lines too. If you are very anti-powder and you're like, that powder will age me, it doesn't matter how very little I use or how finely milled it is, I don't want to use a powder, I would say try a technique like that. Or I also get examples of people who are like, I don't want to powder. There's another option. If you don't use a setting spray like that, you guys, these creams will eventually migrate. It's just an option. But you can also take your fingers during the day, about halfway through the day, and tap out any creasing you might have. It's as easy as that. I like to avoid having to do that at all, so I will use one of these techniques, But I have plenty of people that are like, okay, I sometimes get a little bit of creasing. I just do this during the day and I'm good. So that midday check-in, adjust, see your face. It can also really help you when you're troubleshooting or trying different techniques to kind of analyze and be like, okay, this worked, this didn't, all those things. Now, for my oily skin girls, I would say these are probably a game changer. So the Seint came out with blotting papers. Now, I am not oily, okay? I just applied my makeup. I'm always so impressed by how well these work. If you are oily, most likely during the adjustment phase, you're gonna need to use a technique in order to remove some excess oil. Any blotting papers will work, but ours are pretty impressive. So it will, look at that. Oh my gosh. Okay, but it also kind of mattifies the area just a touch. I still have a glow. It's not like taking away all of the glow to my skin, but it took off quite a bit. So I recommend an oil blotting paper, even a paper towel, those napkins from McDonald's, those really like thin ones from McDonald's, Starbucks, any of those are really good to absorb excess oil as well. So then I'd say use a powder, a finely milled powder. So absorb the oil, powder, and you should be good to go for the rest of the day. So that's just like a midday check-in for my oily girls. So let's get back down to pores because I talked about it a little bit. So obviously if you guys look, yes, you can see my pores. It is what happens when light reflects, and you'll see the texture of your skin. It's normal, completely normal. But I totally get, some people have larger pores in certain areas of their face and they don't like the dewy finish because dewy means light reflection, right? So automatically you're gonna see more of your skin-like texture than you would for a matte foundation, okay? So what do? You use a powder or you use a product like this one from Mally, designed for pores. They do the same thing though. All they're doing is taking away that light reflection, so you're not seeing the texture of your skin anymore. It's mattifying that area. I always say powder, usually everybody has a powder. It doesn't matter the powder, try it on that area, see if it takes it away enough. I feel like this is almost like powder on steroids. This is when you have very large pores that you really want to diminish. I'll be honest, every time I use this on my face, I'm amazed at the way it just takes away all those, the look of those, but then I hate the way I look when it makes me look, well, it just doesn't show my skin anymore. And I want it to look like skin. So let's just do some of my chin right here. So pure silicone, all you do is you use one of these. And you just press it on, okay? So anywhere you wanna take away the look of pores, I care less if my chin is shiny. So the Mally Ever Color Poreless Face Defender. So I would say this can be a big game changer because you can just leave the glow where you want and minimize the pores where you don't want, because there's a lot of false information out there about pores. You can't change the size of your pores, you can't shrink your pores, but there are ways you can minimize the look of pores. And a lot of that has to do with how you finish your face. All right, friends, that was a lot of information, but I hope it was helpful for you in learning how to tweak and take either your makeup application to the next level or knowing what to avoid or what to use as techniques when you are applying your Seint IIID Foundation for the first time, because it's so nice to be able to apply and avoid issues from your very first application. Only I knew then what I know now, right? If I missed anything, drop it in the comments below, any questions you might have. I'm gonna go finish my face. If you need a color match or need any help troubleshooting your 3D foundation colors, my color match request is in the drop box below the video and also in the pinned comment. I would be happy to help you out. As always, thank you guys so much for watching and being here, and I will see you next week. Love you, bye.